spent so long thinking I had to fight this by myself. But I can stand here today because y'all stood with me. Because you stood with me.
We got you. Always.
That's right, man.
I ain't alone anymore.
No, you're not. Start. Good.
Good evening, and welcome to another evening at the Hearts of Men podcast. I am here joined with you tonight with my brothers and our co-host for the evening. I am your main co-host this evening, the son of Timothy, also known as the Available Man. Above me, I got my big bro, the founder of the Wolf Pack concept, the consistency coach, the Uncle Junior from the Uncle Junior Network, and then next to him we got our coach and doctor in the house tonight. I can't help, but I gotta, you gotta get that preacher voice when you say doctor, you know what I mean, or it ain't official. But Dr. Dwayne Dwyer, certified speaker and coach, also known as the Mindset Coach. How are you brothers doing this evening?
I'm doing well. Even though I'm off for the summer, I've had a pretty busy week, but it's been fun. Got a lot of things accomplished. Got to spend a whole bunch of money on my truck. It's like, dang, keep putting money into it. But, it is what it is. I'm thankful that I got the $3 I needed to get it fixed. So
I'm good, man. I have nothing to complain about. It's Friday. We're here. We're getting ready to dive into this awesome conversation, and I get to share it with my brothers as well as the livest chat and social media. So all is well, man. I'm excited.
The livest chat as well. Listen, before we go hot, let me get over here to our peoples. If you see something I don't see, go ahead and help me out. But with that being said, good evening tonight to our sis making things happen behind the curtains, the rebirth of Nick D, to the moderator of all moderators, Sister Krista Everett. She keep us straight, she keep us in line. Robin Bowers, good evening, sis. Who do we have? His divine appointment. Good morning. It's always great to see you, sis. Atlas Key to Keys. Good morning, Sister Lisa. It's good to see you.
It's nighttime.
What I say? Good morning. My bad. Good evening. Good evening. My bad. Good evening. With that said, good evening, Dwayne, the Mindset Coach. Who else we got out here? Good evening. And listen, if I didn't catch you, go ahead and get in the chat. Leave a comment. Tell us good evening so we can see you. Terry, hello to you all, Coach Dwayne, Nick D, Crystal. Good evening to you as well. Great to see you. Go ahead and get into the comments so we can see you. We can acknowledge you and share some love with you as we go ahead with this conversation this evening. So we look forward to seeing your input. But let's go ahead and get hot. See, there's a wound that most men carry. A wound we don't post about, we don't joke about, we don't even name. It's a wound that sits behind our anger, our silence, right? Behind our trust, how we see ourselves, and even how we see the Most High. Tonight, that conversation we'll talk about is called the father wound. Some men grow up with a father who wasn't there. Some had a father who was there but wasn't never present. Some had a father who spoke with his hands, right? Who let his emotions show versus well, we're getting to the verses, right? But some had a father who was fighting his own demons and passed the battle down to us and down to the generations, right? My thing is, have we learned, or what have we learned? Have we viewed our fathers and learned how to grow out of that? Or are those scars still sitting with us today as we have this conversation? Because most men, as a result, don't talk, pretend we don't feel, right? Say we don't need, and we don't take breaks, right? We just keep our minds moving. But at some point, we got to bring it back. And we have to face it. We have to have this conversation. So tonight is going to be our goal to attack this hard conversation, bring some ease within ourselves and with our brothers. And listen, even with our mothers who are out there raising young boys right now, all right, to help understand how this is going to develop in the future. Right? Well, let's get started. Listen, I have a definition. This is not an official definition. This is a Gaddy did some reading, and this is what I could come up with. I would love your input on, and it's just pretty much me defining in my own words the father wound, right? So the definition is the emotional, spiritual, and identity level gap created when a father fails to provide what his son needs, such as affirmation, protection, guidance, discipline, presence, and love. So, my question to you, brothers, do you have any add-ons, takeaways, or any thoughts about this definition that I just read?
I don't. It's a new definition for me. But the only thing I want to add or just say to it is that I guess in my mind, when I'm looking at a wound, I'm looking at like a scar or like an issue or something, and I'm looking at it. What am I trying to say? I don't necessarily like based off the definition and the word father wound. I didn't see the correlation with the gap in the definition. Like the definition, it talked about there being a gap. But when I look at the word father wound, I didn't see the correlation. And like I said, I don't know if that's the only thing I wanted to add to it. But I'm okay with the definition if what I'm thinking is they don't necessarily need to correlate, then I'm fine with that too.
Funny part is that the gap is the part that made me smile when I heard that, because understanding the gap is key. And I don't want to assume that my interpretation of the gap is your intent behind it in the definition. But if the gap is what I think the gap is, I am 100% locked in on this definition.
Well, I hope I stay in the pocket then. Man, so with this definition in mind, as we travel through this conversation, I want to talk about what is the father wound. In the chat, y'all can go ahead and jump into this conversation. Have you ever heard this term used before, the father wound? And if so, just give us your short thoughts about it as we go forward. What is the father wound? So to my brothers, what is the father wound to you from the perspective of a son and of a father?
Well, I will take my stab at it based off of the way I was interpreting the father wound. All right. So, what is a father wound to you from the perspective of father and son? So I looked at it, and now that I'm thinking about it, it may be in the gap. So I may get it after all as I talk through this. So I'm looking at it as the perspective from the father to son. Crazy. All right, what I'm about to say. So the wound, I think, is a scar or something that's caused because there is a gap or a lack of something that was missing, right? So when I was in Iraq and I had the three boys at home, there was a certain there were certain things that I wasn't able to provide because I was in Iraq and they were in, I think it was at Fort Hood, it was in Killeen at the time. So there were just certain things I couldn't do. So there was some scars that were created that left some wounds because there were certain things and teachings that I wasn't able to provide during certain critical times that they may have needed me. Yeah, I could have called, but I was in Iraq from '05 through '09. So there wasn't the internet the way it is today. So the communication barrier, there was a communication barrier there. There was, you could send letters and stuff, but they take a while to get there, stuff like that. But I think kind of sort of as I'm talking about it, I think maybe what the wound is, what the father wound and what the what is the father wound to me and the perspective from son to father. I think it's, could be a sore or a gap or something. Now I'm thinking gap again, that maybe is missing that affects the child or the son somewhere in the long run. Like when you have a wound on your arm or you have a scar or something on there, like it looks different. You can see it. It takes a while for it to heal, but there are wounds and stuff that leave lasting scars. I don't know, but I'm gonna put a pin into that for right now and see what Coach got.
There is a pipeline, if you will. That pipeline, to me, I like to call a training pipeline. And in order for me to get to a progressive place, there are certain benchmarks that I must meet. The issue here is that there are certain people in the child's life that are major players in that pipeline. For a son, a major player in that training pipeline is his father. Make no mistake about it, because that is his model for what manhood should be. That is also his model of what husbandry should be. That is also his model of what fatherhood looks like. So you have three distinct postures that that son is supposed to be able to shoulder that he learns from his father. Pull that father out the picture, there's a huge void left in that child's life. Now, change the narrative because I wanna look at it from both ends because it says from the perspective of son and father. As a father, you have a desire to be the primary trainer for that young boy. You have a desire to see him grow, develop, and nurture himself, or you nurture him into the awesome individual that he is destined to be. But if I am not in the picture for whatever reason, and I do not get the opportunity, trust and believe, and I'm not saying that this is 100% across the board, but I believe on a large scale, a lot of men have a degree of low grade depression when they cannot speak and help that young lad grow into the awesome individual that he is supposed to be. So the wound now becomes those postures that I made mention of. The wound is the struggles that that son is going to go through, learning how to be a man, learning how to be a husband, learning how to be a father. Because in essence, they end up doing it by way of trial and error. And a lot of times they end up repeating some of the same things that they've seen or, you know, looking at somebody else who they don't know and trying to mimic those things, or totally getting totally away from some things that they thought or believed that their father was. On the other side, for that father, it's there is no there is no recovery from a depression like that. They either learn a coping mechanism or learn how to deal with it until that relationship is rekindled to some degree. But even with that being said, you miss the formative years of that child's life. You miss the opportunity to help them develop and grow. And let's be honest, you try to help out as best you possibly can in their older life because you can physically see that they may be struggling with some things. But nonetheless, that wound is going to be there simply because of whatever decisions that you and mama made in your younger years.
Man, I love everything you brothers say because y'all are definitely right there in the pot. And so here's the thing: I don't really have too much to say because I know you was looking at the notes. I had a lot in my mind with when given this topic because I think all this is a dear topic close to all men, whether you're a father or even as a son, right? But I thought it was important to highlight that the father wound is different per father and per son. Because whatever wounds that Unc got from his father, not saying he has any, he may not, right? But that even goes to my point. He may not he may feel like he's healthy. He had a healthy relationship with his father. Well, I can't say the same. So it looks different for me. So for him, his perspective of the father wound is from the outside looking in, or vice or whatever, right? But me and Coach may both have father wounds, but we may not have the same concept because different things were left behind for us. And so I think what we do, let me stop saying I think. What we do is we often try to make a cookie cut version of what a thing looks like and put it on every man, every woman, every child, because it is common that we deal with an issue. We commonly deal as men in America with some sort of absent father image or presence, right? That's the norm here, but how that shows up is different, which means handled is different per person. So I just and I had to say that because I feel like today we have so many social media behavior health specialists that just say whatever comes out their mouth, and we forget some of us don't have the and I don't even want to say the license or whatever words people don't like, but I'm gonna use, most of us don't have the criteria to give our opinion on behavior health to an extent, because when I begin to believe that I understand how Dwayne Dwyer needs to be taken care of, now I'm a liar. I can only tell you what I've read in a book about behavior health because I don't practice. This is why they practice, because they learn every patient. The school counselor, every child he talked to, he learned. That's why they practice, right? But I don't, and I think some of us have to admit we don't practice. So understand, everyone has to be handled and dealt with their own way. And sometimes the best option is to ask them to go see a behavior health specialist. I just had to put that part out there because to me that was important. But I'm gonna keep on moving because man, you're looking at some of these questions. I'm like, can we afford to skip tonight? I don't know. Well, let's see. The next question on this segment, because the goal right now is to try to create some level of transparency before we get into the types. So if you're willing, and if you're not, but how did your relationship with your father, if you don't mind, help shape you as an adult male? Wording was important.
For me, it helped shape some of my thoughts, some of my morals, and some of my thoughts, and as to look deeper into who someone actually is versus just what you may see on the outside or what they may show, right? So I had two different versions of my father growing up and into adulthood. I had the version of my father when I first was born and first remember him, of the minister in the church who used to preach on, the ministers would alternate on Wednesdays, and every fourth or fifth rotation he would preach on Wednesdays. I remember going to church on a regular basis. And then I also remember, as I got older, I remember the father that was on the substance abuse father. So I had both. I had the one who was really in church and a lot of structure. Then I had the one, middle to high school. I had the different version of my father. And then later on in life, I had the sober version again. You know what I mean? So I had, 2 to 3 different versions of my father as I grew up, and I learned, all of those things from him. Just how to think, and about certain things. We were raised in the church, so we thought, we didn't see color, we didn't see anything. All we saw was that we were all God's creatures. That's all I was taught. Um, and then, when it came to, certain morals, things that we got from the church, by him being a preacher and different things like that in the church. So we got a lot of scriptural and a lot of biblical principles that was input into us early too. So, and then, looking deeper, and that goes into, I spent a lot of my early teenage years and my early 20s trying not to be like my father, trying not to be like the substance abuse person, only to, get older into my 30s and 40s and realize that I wanted to be a lot more like him than I knew at that age, because I remember the one that was the into church, the one that taught us morals and taught us how to think and different things like that. So again, I had both, and he kind of shaped all of those things for me, just to name a few. So
This is, I think this is a great question. And I'm going to start before I answer the question. Listen, if you are with us tonight, make sure you hit that like button. I want to say that first, because these are some good questions that we are unpacking today. It's a lot of vulnerability that you're going to hear come across this platform today. So again, hit that like button and share it to somebody who you think really needs to hear this conversation. Um, for this question, how did your relationship with your father help shape you as an adult male? Let me be completely honest with everybody. I didn't know my father. I knew who he was, but I didn't know him because at a certain age, he and my mother had already separated. And by the time I got old enough to actually understand, it's not like we spent a lot of time together. Sure, we would talk on the phone. But what actually happened is that I was gifted an image of who he was by my grandmother, by my aunts, uncles, and things of that nature. And no shade to them. I think they did the right thing as it pertains to helping me to understand who he is. But no one can really help me understand who my father is except for my father himself. So if I'm being completely transparent, I can't really say that my relationship as a young child that it shaped me into being an adult male because I didn't see him as an adult male. I understand he was an adult male, but I never witnessed it. I never seen him as an adult male. I never seen him as a father. I seen glimpses of him in those roles, the times that I got to spend with him when I got to spend time with him, which was, if I'm being completely transparent, it was far few and in between, right? No shade. It was just the life that was gifted at that particular point in time. He and my mother couldn't figure it out. They went their separate ways, lived their different lives. So as it pertained to that, I did not have that model coming from him. I seen models of other people that I kind of gravitated to. Make no mistake about it, though. When he was coming to town, it was Christmas for me. And I'm not talking gifts. I'm talking about the way a child behaves on Christmas morning. That was me. I looked forward to spending time with him because that's my dad. I didn't really care about what they went through. So I never lost that desire to see him and spend time with him and things of that nature. So I think a lot of time, I'm glad, Terry, you connected the reticular activating system from last night's conversation and brought it into this conversation. Because if my mindset is shaped to see him in a particular light, when I see him, I only get to see him through the lens that was given to me, whether that lens was negative and positive or positive. And I'll be completely honest with you, I had both chirping in my ear at the same time. One side was painting a picture of me about him to where he was everything but a child of God. And the other side was painting a picture to me about, listen, he ain't perfect, but trust me, once he realizes who he is, that's going, it is what it is. So it's like all of these things happen in the mindset of a young boy now grow up to be an adult male. And I'll share this piece here before I get off of this topic. My relationship with my father is a lot better now than it ever has been. And I'm 52 years old.
That's a word right there. Like, if we actually listen to what was just said by both of these brothers, and this is what I like about this question, because this kind of separates a little bit of what I was talking about on the last question. Like, this kind of separates us now to where we could see the individual aspect behind this. Like, for me, I can't talk about the three different I can talk about two different personalities: the drunk T and the sober T. But I can also talk about him not being in the home full time, but he was never absent from us. You know what I'm saying? So the story kind of connects with y'all, but it's slightly different. My father was in the home when I was born. Him and my mother separated when I was really young. Initially, he lived around the corner from us, but we eventually moved to Harlem. Then we moved further away from the Bronx, right? And I ended up in Staten Island for high school. So my father was always available. I just had to go get him, right? Now, in the same token, my father was also he was a street entrepreneur as well. He had a 9-to-5, but he also had some steady cash flow coming through. So I saw like different aspects of a man. That was the moment I realized, as a man, I didn't have to be limited to one thing. That I can have different hats. He was a businessman. He worked downtown in Manhattan as a businessman, and then he came home and he was, like a better term. I joke, but I'm not joking. Like, for lack of a better term, my father was similar. It was similar to being raised by ghosts. Like, the man is in them streets, but everybody else see him in the suit and tie. Thinking he going to Wall Street, right? But so I got to see different aspects of a man, but that absence played such a loud voice in my life, because the only voice I had to listen to. And listen, this is the only thing I'll be arguing. If you catch me really arguing with any of these crazy females on social media about some of the stuff, it's because we don't realize how much men have been hearing the same stuff. I say this all the time, and people think I'll be joking, but the moment my father was absent in my house, from then on, from that day forth, for even to this day, thanks to social media, all I've heard growing up, not all I've heard, but I've heard almost every day from that moment on, how simply because I'm a black male, I ain't. And you can put that the word in there, right? So that's the voice speaking into me. I don't have that man speaking life into me. And this is why I tell a lot of women, like, all of this negative talk, what do you think is doing to the psyche of these young men that are growing up? I had to grow up listening to women sit around the table, smoke Newports, and talk about how men ain't this, how we could do this to men, and all they good for is this, and all they good for is that. And I'm not saying women are going to stop women talking, men going to stop men talk, but we have to be mindful, because that was what I heard growing up as a young boy. It wasn't in secret. It wasn't in their private, adults only. You know how they used to do it when we was growing up. Kids, y'all go in the room. Now they were 100s. They were Cadillacs, Chief. But
I figured that's why I asked. Boy, them old ladies, they like them Cadillacs, boy.
And that thing didn't move while she was having the conversation. It was sitting right there.
3 weeks to smoke.
Hey, but joking and unjoking. So for me, that fault, that growing up, a lot of becoming an adult male, I had to piece together. What an adult male. Notice I ain't talking about being a man. I'm talking about being an adult male. I had to learn, and we have to learn what that looks like even before we become grown into a man. I believe, because there's just some basic adulting responsibilities. All right, but I didn't have that man speaking that like, and that played an part into my psyche, my imposter syndrome that I still talk about to today. At 40 years old, it's but this is how far these things travel. It's not easy to just drop it off. I wish it was, but man, I can keep going, but I'm not, because I'm going to get to this question that I wanted to get to last question, but I moved forward too fast. So apology on me. I want to bring up Queen V's question. She said, "What if the wound was there because the father was there, yet in essence, he was not there?" Only thing I would say to that, brothers, if y'all hit this, we're gonna hit this in the next segment as well. So if y'all want to address it before we get there, though.
Well, if we're gonna hit in the next segment, I'll pick it up then.
Check right. So, Queen V, I just wanted you to know we see your question. I really like this question so much that I already had a question for it to answer. So I do like it, and we're gonna get to it here in a few seconds. Let's
Gaddy.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, sir, please.
All right, and maybe Coach too. Actually, both of y'all. You mentioned picking up the pieces. It seems like we have the absent fathers. We all kind of similar, talking about having to put things together and put the pieces together. It seems like from what I've known from you gentlemen, it seems like all three of us, for as much as we could manage deployments and manage things out of our control, we were there, right? So do you think that when fathers are there and fathers are active like us, do you think that our kids and our sons have to also pick up the pieces and put it together? But it's just they have somebody to talk to, or they have something to lean on while they're putting the pieces together. Because it seems like, as a father, I didn't cross every T and dot every I for them boys, because I knew they had to go out there. So I knew that even though I may have had certain things harder and my dad may not have been there, I was still there, even if it was a phone call away every week or every couple of days in Iraq. But for the most part, within my control, I was there. So I guess, again, you mentioned about putting the pieces together, especially for us growing up, our fathers being the way they were, we missed out on a lot of things. We are in the home and have been in the home, but we also are making our children, or have put things in place for them to have to put pieces together too. So do you think that it's maybe easier for our kids in a sense because they have had us to lean on? I don't know. I don't know if that's a question or statement. I just had a question, thoughts about that.
I was really trying not to answer that question because it really is the same question that she just asked.
Okay.
If you really think about it, and I'm just saying, I want to make sure that we don't answer the same question twice. So that's the only reason I'm saying what I'm saying. I think it's a great question, just like I think her question is great as well. But I think when Gaddy asks this next question, whatever this next question is, I think all of that can be addressed and drawn together.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah, man. I'm right there. I think it is tied into Queen V's question. But in all, I would say it should. The goal is for it to be easier for our children. There are two parents involved, and so my prayer as we move forward as a community is that we begin as fathers and mothers to decide to break the cycle. I understand that there is a spiritual aspect, and we will address that. But I think for me, a lot of the problems come in is like, hey, why are we continuing these cycles? Why are we continuing the handed down traumas? And it's kind of what you're talking about. But yeah, I feel like it should get easier for our sons if we maintain our relationship as mentors to them. If I hope I addressed the question properly. But I was trying to be like Coach. I was trying to be a little pull back a little bit so I didn't jump into the next segment. So the next segment we're going to talk about is our 4 types of father wounds, right? So the type of father wounds, and I'm gonna call them out, and we're gonna address them. I got a question for them. 1 is the absent father. 2 is the present father. I mean the passive father. My apology. 3 is the angry father, right? And then 4, that is our unhealed father. And we're gonna kind of jump into those here. We're gonna start right here at the top with the absent father, right? And the absent father, it says, creates typically abandonment, insecurity, and self-doubt are some of the issues that come along with the absent father. I think along with that, men who develop need an approval as we become men. So we become approval seekers. But my question on this segment for you brothers is, in adult men, what are some battles that you notice that we face as fathers? I'm sorry, when the father is not in the home, but just in general as men.
I'm gonna say control, right? And what I mean by control is you have, and I see it on a regular basis with high school students. You got talk to a lot of moms who have sons and they can't control them. They're 14, they're 6 foot tall, they wide, they thick, they strong, you know what I'm saying? So I think, one of those battles, when the father is not home is sometimes, and I know, this is, it is what it is, but I know that there are some women out there who are struggling. One of the battles is the women that's at home with some of the young men. Because like I said, I get phone calls. I talk to women and they like, well, Mr. Martin, I don't know what to do. He won't listen. I can't get him up in the morning to go to school. I can't get him to take a bath, like stuff like that. Like, and I'm being for real, they can't take the phone away from them. Like what you going to do when your 6 foot, 200-pound son tell you he ain't giving you his phone? So I think one of those battles that, adult men, in adult men, what are some battles faced when the father's not home? So I think that's the beginning part of that. And then what happens is those young men grow up. And now these young men are 20, 22, 24, 34. Now their mindset and the way they think, and even sometimes the way that they handle women can all be affected based off of how that relationship is with his mother while they're in the house. Now there's control issues going on in the house because I'm 14. I got 3 pieces of hair up under my on my armpit and my voice cracking now. So I'm thinking I'm big stuff. you know, and I'm a big boy, you know. So I think I said, you know, sometimes when those stuff are happening, when fathers are not in the home, and then now these young men are growing up and there's control issues, they're having problems with women that they're dating. And again, I think someone mentioned, you know, some of it was things that they saw. And yes, some of it is things that they saw, but there's also some of the things that were being allowed or just how certain things were inside of the home with the mom when their dad was not around. That's my 2 cents on that.
This is a serious battle, simply because, going back to what I said previously, if he is the model for me as what the male figure is supposed to be, as a man, as a husband, as a father, then I struggle with identity formation. I'm going to say it again. I struggle with identity formation. So, what are the 4 aspects of identity formation? My concept of a man is distorted. And a lot of times it's contorted based upon the information that I receive about that man. I'll say that part again. My concept of a man is distorted, and a lot of times is contorted based upon the information that I receive about that man, because that man is the source from which I came. So now, moving from the concept, there is the actual embodiment of my identity as well. I can't embody the thing if I can't conceptualize it. So now the embodiment of it now matters. If I don't have a good concept of manhood, and let me be specific in this explanation. If I don't have a good concept of what a Dwyer man looks like, it is very hard for me to embody that Dwyer man concept. And then from there, the esteem is damaged. My self-esteem is damaged. How I esteem myself. So I will struggle with esteeming anyone higher than myself, because I have never gotten to the point to where I thought highly of myself based upon my concept of my identity. But then let's go further, because I have a distorted concept. I have a distorted embodiment. I also have a distorted esteem. So socially, I have an issue expressing that. See, everything you just talked about makes sense when them young boys got anger issues and they're rebelling because of everything I just said. In public, I'm rebelling. I'm angry. I'm argumentative. I'm fighting left and right, simply because there's something internal to me that for me is broken. Now, I'm going to get all the feel good messages from the outside. Oh, you know, it's just it's not that easy. Something in me is broken that needs to be fixed. And so now the expression socially is going to be an issue, because here's what happens for a person who has low self-esteem. They're either, and pardon my French, but I have to be honest and transparent with this. They're going to use themselves, abuse themselves to make themselves feel good about themselves. Read between the lines. Y'all understand what I'm talking about? They will abuse something else to make themselves feel good about themselves, or they will abuse somebody else to make themselves feel good about themselves. Listen to me, and listen to me well. There is no shortcut around this. You can hide it, you can cover it up all you want to, but I don't care how old you get, it will always remain until you go back and do the work to repair it. Now, in somebody's mind, they're like, well, the only way it sounds like the only way they can repair it is if that man shows up and start having honest conversation. That is the easiest way for them to repair it. Have honest conversation with their dad at any given point in time, regardless if, you know, they're 40, 50 years old. As an adult male, their dad, 70, 80 years, have an honest, listen, no. Listen to me, honest conversation. He needs to understand what his absence meant to you when you was growing up. Some of us, some of us have not reached the maturity level to have honest conversations with our dad as an adult because we're still viewing them. Listen to me, and this might rub somebody the wrong way, and this is not intended to rub you the wrong way. This is intended to be the honest thing that you're not going to hear, like Gaddy called, those behavioral health specialists, on the internet. This is the thing they're not going to tell you. And I'm so you as an adult, I understand that is your father, but now, depending upon your belief system, that's your brother. You need to be able to have honest conversation. I'm not saying disrespect them. I'm not saying no. You need to have conversations with them as though they're your brother now. You need to be truthful, honest, whatever the case may be. Some of us are still walking around here acting like little boys when you get around your parents. We got to cut that mess out. You are an adult. You're a grown man. Sit down and have grown man conversations with your dad so that they can understand what their absence meant to you in your life. That's important, because if they never get to the point and it's just glossed over, it's pretended to be as though, oh well, it's all good. You turned out well. Yeah, no, it don't work that way. Come back next Friday. We're gonna talk about what that anger does to men, what it looks like. I'm here to tell you, like this is serious work. This is serious business. And here's the other side of it. That young man that grew up without their dad is going to find somebody else and tie their life to. And then, ideally, it's a couple of different ways they can go. They can look at it as being absentee is an option, or I don't want to repeat that, so I'm going to hold on for dear life, which could be problematic as well, right? They're either going to use that person to make themselves feel good. So it's a number of different ways. Remember, there was a training pipeline that was supposed to happen. Absent of the necessary training that you were supposed to get, you're going to end up having improper execution. I'm gonna get off my soapbox because I can go to work on this one, bro.
Man, I'm with y'all on this one. We could have 15 brothers up here, and we will have enough for every brother to talk about in this one spot. Because, like, watch this. You talked about pipeline. Well, here was the pipeline in the 80s and 90s when I was growing up. The school. Well, y'all know where the other places at. Right. That pipeline only existed through the avenue of the absent father. I'm gonna tell you why. Because Unc just told us that even in the home, you see signs of that anger problem that develops, sign of that power struggle. And think about this: as a 14-year-old boy, I see a little bit of and I feel a little strong. So now I'm starting to feel I'm becoming a man, and I'm trying to identify what this man thing looks like. And the first thing I see is this woman over here in my house not being protected. So now, guess what I feel like I got to do? Because I mean, the little boys run around here thinking they got to stand up for their mama. You know what I mean? Run around, don't talk to my mama. Why are you looking at my mama? Little boy, you better go somewhere before you get beat 14 ways to Sunday. Who you talk? Like, but we don't tell these little boys that. Like, yo, we be setting some of these little boys up to go out there and get their behind hand. I remember the first time I tried to look a grown man in his face talking about something. Why are you looking at my mama? I think back on that, like, man, I think the Most High that them grown men had some had some common sense. Because if they slapped the mess out of me, my head still be facing this way. You know what I'm saying? Like, but this is what we have. And so now imagine these little boys, if they feel like the man at home, mama telling them, you the man in this house. Your daddy don't pay a bill here. I see videos of these little 14, 15-year-old boys talking crazy to their daddy because their mom and daddy ain't together. And now imagine that they taking that same energy with them to school. And this is how they interacting with other young men trying to find their manhood and having this testosterone imbalance that they never had before. Now, imagine those same people go ahead. Now that we got rid of the daddy and we got some anger management problem, let's give them some angry music to tell them to go do some stupid stuff. And then when they do stupid stuff, let's build up about 15 million beds just for people like that across the country. Let's just build them. They'll fill up. This is really what we're dealing with. And these are the questions that we have to answer internally. We can go to all the external reasons, but internally as a community, this is how that pipeline worked. Started by creating absentee fatherhood. And so now that to the point to where now in 2026, if there's a father in your house, you're the anomaly. That's sad. That is, and so I feel like we face battles all throughout life. Anger is just one of those things. Under trying to identify who I am as a man, I think is what brings that anger, because I don't know what everything is supposed to look like. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be looking like doing a thing. And when it don't work out the way I want it to work out, I think leadership looks like trying to make it look like what I want it to look like. How many times I told you to get y'all know? Let me just keep going.
If I may, because I did promise that I was going to answer Queen V's question. I think this is the appropriate time to answer it, because I know we're talking about the absence, right? The absentee father here.
No, when I promise you it's the next question, I promise.
Okay, all right.
I promise. I said the next segment, but it's definitely the next question in this segment. I 100% promise you that. That's the only reason why I stopped you. That's the only reason why I stopped. With that, let's bring up Lisa's comment real quick. I wanted to read this because we're talking from the hearts of men. But we would be remiss if we didn't understand that our sisters that are in our audience are part of this conversation too. I think as men in this conversation, and this is a side note and I'm coming back, I think as men, sometimes we can even get selfish in this, that we think we're the only ones affected by absent fathers. But what about the girl that don't know how to choose a good father for her children? She having babies by anybody because she's trying to figure out which man is the right man. She don't know. Oh, you respect your body, young sis. Who taught her? What man in her house showed her how a man is supposed to respect her? And so then we get a question, we get a response like this, right? As a daughter, it did not allow me to experience my father's love, instructions, or direction. I had my grandfather who taught me some things when he visited, but that was my extent of a father's teaching. All right. How much more could she have learned? Right. And we talk about, and I hear in the manosphere all the time, they talk about, oh, were you choosing them? Were you choosing them? They don't know what to look for. I'm just being honest. Men don't know what to look like and women don't know what to look for. Because that model is not in the home. Y'all got anything on that?
No, I mean, I'm agreeing. I'm 100% in alignment with that. Like some of you already know, especially the Bible study group, like my daughter came on and we shared a conversation that we had. And just like I told you that as men, you need to have that honest conversation with your father, I told her, I opened the door. Like she wanted to have that conversation. I kept probing, right? Whatever you want to talk about, I'm an open book. So one day she just said, Dad, I just want to talk with you. And so I always told myself, if any of my kids, I don't care who they are, any of my kids say, hey, I want to talk with you, I'm showing up. I'm not going to pick up the phone or text or whatever the case may be. So I showed up to the apartment, knocked on the door, and came in. And like I said, we sat down, we talked, and it was crying, laughter, crying, laughter, crying, laughter. And as she was saying some of the things, I promised myself that I was going to own everything she said. It did not matter what she had to say. I was going to own every word of it. And I'm so glad we had that conversation, because now, what you'll find is that she will have conversations with me about potential relationships and whatever the case may be. And I'm that person. I'm like, nope, run for the hills. An insecure man is not somebody you need to want to get. I'm just, but to your point, like, that's what that looks like. That's what that should look like. You should be able to, and again, it's a difference in the training pipeline. The training pipeline looks different from boys to girls, because there's a primary trainer for a boy, there's a primary trainer for the girl. And a lot of that, I'm just keeping it real, my supposedly wife can't really train him on what to look for in a wife, right? I teach him what the scriptures say. On the other hand, when it comes down to, my wife, she can't really train my son on what to look for, so just it crosses paths. That's the key. On one side is training, on one side is nurturing. I say it again, on one side is training, on one side is nurturing. What does that mean? The husband trains the son and nurtures the daughter. The wife trains the daughter and nurtures the son. What we do is get our wires crossed a lot. I say again, what we do is get our wires crossed a lot. And not only do we cross our wires, we have allowed society to force our wires to be crossed. Going back to what Gaddy just said. So now you're either forced in a position to, as a mother, you're training the son, which that's not your position. You're supposed to be nurturing the son. And then as a single father, I am in the space where I'm training my daughter. I can't teach her how to be an adult woman. I just can't. I can teach her how to be a good person. That's the best I can do. And the same thing on the other side. So when you look at it, why is it that the other one is the nurturer? Because the nurturer is the protector. The daughter's protector is her father. Make no mistake about it. The son's protector is the mother. Because think about it. As a man, I want my son to get skinned up a little bit. That's how he learn. That's how we do. We do the tough love thing. Then she'll be like, no, I don't. He needs to learn how to resolve conflict. Babe, this is resolving conflict as a man. That's what we do. But so okay, maybe you're right. So it's like we need to understand these things. And I think a lot of times when we hear certain conversations, we hear that conversation as an attack on the other sex. It is not. We need to adjust the way we see things because our reticular activating system is off-centered. Just because you hear men talking about boys and absentee fathers and things of that nature, it's only because it's the hearts of men as it pertains to young male development. There are also times where we'll talk about what that looks like for women and things of that nature, but the title will tell you that. But then on the other side, when you hear women talking about, young girls and what it looked like, then men shouldn't be all, for the lack of better terms, butthurt. Like we have to understand that. If we have in our mind where I feel offended because you're talking about and you're not mentioning my sex, that's the issue here that I need to fix. The issue is not on the panel. The issue is not on the screen. We need to get to the point where we can hear every conversation because here's the thing that I know. A lot of time, the issue is not what I'm hearing, it's what I know. And what I'm hearing may be outside of what I know. And if I'm open up my mind to hear what it is that's actually being said, which might be outside of what I know, then I can actually learn more than what I know. But if it has to line up with what I know, that's a problem. That's a concern. We got to fix that.
No, that's real. That's real. I wanted to now I'm gonna say something, but I want to bring up Robin's comment real quick. Which one? The one yes. For me, I had a father and 3 brothers, none of which could teach or tell me about choosing the right man. I'm gonna hit this real quick. If y'all want to hit it, it's gonna be real quick, and then we get out. But here's the thing, okay? And so my thought, and I'm in agreement with everything that we've heard tonight. But let me say this too. There are a set of instructions that can be given. We see now that we understand what Proverbs 31 is telling us. We saw that. We saw the mother. Watch this. We saw the mother instructing her son on what a woman looks like when that woman is walking with the Most High and in obedience to the Most High. This is when you are a virtuous woman. That's why it's important to understand that the rest of that was evidence of the way she lived. It's because you don't understand that those things don't make you a virtuous woman. Those things come from a virtuous woman. But what made a virtuous woman was that she walked with the Most High. We're gonna keep going, but here's what my job is to do when I'm around my mother and my sisters. Even if they don't say, look for this, look for this, look for this, I should be learning from how they. This is why the presence is so important, because I should be able to see a wife from my mama. I should. I ain't say I. Right. We all know we got our own different testimonies, but I should be able to look at my mama, how she take care of her house and her husband, and go find me a wife. Just like the woman should be able to see her father and her brothers in her life, and should be able to see a version of a husband that she can go find. Go ahead, Coach. I'm gonna shut up.
No, man, you're good. You're good. I think just to add to what you're saying, I think, man, I'm so glad you went there. I think sometimes we confuse the content because we take it out of context. And sometimes the context, if it's not within the right content, is more confusing. See, he is spot on what he is saying about the virtuous woman. But here's the best part about it. The mother's instruction was to the son based upon the family dynamics of the family. She was talking to her son who was king. Where do you think she got it from? Her husband. Let me tell you something. If we got a farm, if we got a farm, and you trying to tell your son king instructions, it ain't gonna work. So it has to be put in this proper context. That's why I said Dwyer men, the family matters. And the issue is that somehow we've lost, we don't know the significance of the name. We've lost the understanding of the name. See, the son of Timothy, that's not his name. The available man, that's not his name. The Uncle Junior, that's not his name. The consistency coach is not his name. That's a Gaddy, that's a Martin. So the thing that they're supposed to always honor, that's their respect, right? Because when we like to go back to say, honor thy mother and thy father, honor thy mother and thy father, ultimately is that they will not do anything to defile the name. Okay, I'm done.
Everybody in Proverbs, somebody find the Proverbs and post it for me. But it says that a good name is better than riches. I just wanted to put that out there. It might say silver and gold while you're looking it up, but that's what it say though. So just to make coach's point. This is why this is what legacy mean as men. This is why it was important in Exodus 3 when Moses was told to go back into Israel, and he looked back, he said, hold on, wait. But who do I tell them sent me? Because if there's no name and no reputation behind that name, there's no credence behind it. Okay, who sent you? You give me a name I don't know. He said, no, tell them the God of your fathers sent you. So when you see I am that I am, he's saying, tell them the one that have existed for your fathers. Ahia, Ashah, Ahia. Let the one who existed for your fathers, he sent you. I am exactly what your fathers told you I was. I am. Don't worry, I am. Was I a deliverer for Joseph? I am. was I a deliverer for Isaac? I was. Right. So tied to that, he comes back. He said, well, who do I say something? He said, well, here, tell them that Yah sent you. And that name is tied to his reputation. That name, when you listen, I only know one Garfield. Right. I don't care what the last name is. I only know, you know two, I know one. I know one Garfield in real life. And so when I hear Garfield, his reputation, I'm like, oh, if I don't see him for 20 years, I'm like, does he got a big old beard? Always got a hat on, look like he either ready to go fishing or he gonna go, like he look like he ready to go enjoy himself. Like I know who Garfield is, like by reputation of what I know. And so I like that you brought that out. I'm gonna get off because once we go here, I can stay there. With that said, as we move, we're gonna move into the passive father. So my real answer for the absent father, you ready? And I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna move to the passive father. My real answer for the absent father: what happens? What what are some of the battles faced when a father's not in the home? My connection to the electric source is missing. That's the gap. My covering that connects me to the Most High has been stripped. I heard a preacher say, child born without a father in the home is stillborn spiritually. I'm just going to leave that right there. Whew. Now, we're getting over to the passive father. The passive father talks about physically present, but emotionally distant. Right? So men who grow up unsure of how to lead or how to express themselves are just some of the things that we see come from the effects of the passive father. So my question to my brothers is, what are some development issues a male child faces when the father is not active in his upbringing, even though his presence is there? Hold on, can y'all do me a favor before y'all attack this? Nick D, I wanted to do this a while back, but I want to periodically, if we can, throw up that segment 4, that final thought question, so that the brothers can continue can read it through. I did have a final thought question. If y'all wouldn't mind attacking some of these areas. But we're gonna continue on with the segment, but we're gonna have it. I like that. Thank you. We're gonna have it flowing at the bottom. So the floor is yours.
So I see, as I'm looking at this question, I'm looking at 2 reasons why a father would be present but not active. One is maybe he's not allowed to. Maybe the mom has taken over all of the duties in the home when it comes to upbringing of the child, and the dad has no say so. Now, maybe y'all have never seen that, but that is something that I have seen. So, and it's like the dad's in the home, but he ain't allowed to do nothing. He ain't allowed to whoop no hind parts. He ain't allowed to let homeboy scrape up his knees. You know, he's constantly being coddled in the home. So I think we got that one where the father is present but not absent. And then you got the one where maybe the child, and that's more than one. Now you got the one where the child, well, maybe the dad is working 12 to 16. He got 2 hours from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with the child, and he's just tired. So he's coming in and maybe unwind for an hour, jumping on Call of Duty or something. But I think either way you slice it, the developmental issues are going to be a little bit different based off of, I think, kind of the reason why the father may be present but not active. But I think I'm gonna probably go a little bit more with the dad not being around because he's busy, or he just don't know how, or just ain't willing to do stuff, or maybe just physically can't. And I think that some of the developmental issues is all of the things that men are supposed to be teaching their son, whether it's how to change the oil, whether it's how to change the tire. We talk even tangible things like that, conversations about how to choose the right woman, or how to be the right man to attract the right type of woman. Like all of the conversations and development, all of the conversations, all of those things that are used to help him develop into the man that he needs to be. When the father's not active and he's not around, even though he's there, he ain't getting nothing. And then I also think as the child grows up, especially if that child becomes a father, I think there's an opportunity for some resentment there, because it's like, Dad, well, you was in the house, like, why you ain't tell me this? Why you ain't teach me about finances? Why you didn't teach me about women? Like, bro, you in the house. You know what I mean? Like why is it that you didn't teach me some of those things? So that's kind of where I'm landing at right now. I think it's a whole lot more to go into this. Very interested in seeing what Coach got to say, because my question, T's question, he almost answered it last time. So I'm really got my pen ready for this one. So I'm ready. Well, actually, I just watch it again. So
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what Coach got to say too. Um, man, I'm looking at the time. You know, this kind of takes me back to Army days, and we did a lot of planning and things of that nature when it comes down to execute missions, and depending upon what aspect of the mission that we were in, that is the thing that we planned for. So if we were in the defense, you know, I think one of the best, most robust defenses that they are is what is called a defense in depth. So, what is a defense in depth? You have something that's forward, that is active, right? It is actively looking and searching for the threat. And then within it, you have a response to those things that are, you know, that attack the thing that's actively looking and searching for the threat. And then there is another passive means of, servicing the threat within itself. When I look at this question, some of the developmental issues a child faces when a father is not active in a home. Graphic, I love the fact that you mentioned work, because I do believe that that is one of the main issues that we have when it comes down to the father being outside of the home. And yet we view it as a thing to glorify. And this is not specific just to fathers, by the way. This is fathers and mothers. The absence of your presence is the concern. But do not confuse presence and think that your presence alone is a present. When a child grows up and they go through these things I just talked about, there is some psychological, emotional, and mental concerns that they're trying to work through. And because they may not necessarily have the tools, they may not necessarily have the resources, or they may not necessarily have the wherewithal, because trust me, it's taboo in our community at one point in time to go to mental health. Because of those three things, they may not have went back and got those things resolved. So now what ends up happening is that they are actually projecting the understanding of a conditioning that exists. And that condition can say everything from happy wife, happy life. That, I got to work, I got to provide and protect, I got to do all these different things. And my interpretation of provide and protect is making sure that the lights don't get cut off, making sure that the bills are paid on time and all that other great stuff. But I don't necessarily equate provide and protect to me being there to be the primary trainer in my home so that they themselves actually get to the point to where they can protect and provide as well. So now within the scope of these three areas, psychological, emotional, and mental, lacking, now you get to the point to where you're home, you're present, but in your mind, you're like, well, you know what? We don't really make a big deal about stuff unless it has to do with respect. Because to me, that's an intentional attack. So I have to neutralize the threat. Oh, yes, I did call it a threat because that's how I perceive it, because I have not dealt with the psychological, emotional, or mental concerns that I'm dealing with. So anything that opposes my presence is a threat, to include my spouse. I said it again, to include my spouse. Now, I'm really just getting started on this because it goes a whole lot deeper. Because remember, we talked defense in depth. So what is the defense in depth concept? Well, in order to build an accurate defense in depth, you start from internal and work your way out. So that means that the family structure within itself has to be healthy. It has to be whole. It has to be functioning according to the training pipeline. Once we get that, then we work our way outside of the doors of the house into the community. So now the community, because everybody else is doing the same thing, the community now becomes an aspect of the defense. And then ideally, our community branch off to other communities or the church, because in essence, that's what the church is supposed to be, the collection of communities coming together. So now the depth looks like the church, the community, then the house. So no one gets to my house inside the doors without going through the church, going through the community, and then getting through the front door. And even when you get in the front door, you got a level of defense inside that door. But yet I am reminded, and I will never forget this image, the image of a broken man. And all that man did is sit in the corner at the age of 79 years old and just sat there. And all types of other stuff was going on around him. He just sat there, didn't say a word, because he was, for whatever reason, and I'm not going to say that I know what the reason is, but I have a good idea. But he was whipped into submission, and all he did was be present. That's it.
Man, listen, the hardest thing to do as a young man is to find your identity as a man when the man that you see present doesn't have an active role in the family. Whoever we placing the blame on, we need to start having this conversation. Because here's the thing, I agree on all hands. Because remember, none of this stuff is cookie cutter. So some of it is, yes, I'm with Unc. Like some of it is he had to work. And let's be clear. Let's start. And this is why this conversation needs to be shared, because somebody needs to hear the fact. Listen, you want a high earning man means you're going to have a non-present man sometimes, because high earners have a high responsibility for the people giving them this money. Because remind you, if you're making 6 figures, that's 6 figures of somebody else's money going in your pocket. So they're going to require 6 figures of them hours. I got some projects that need to be done. I got whatever that looks like. But if you want a high earner, the chances are you're going to find somebody that doesn't have a high presence. Well, then what does that look like in your home while you're trying to raise his male children? Right? And like you say, that male child starts smelling himself when he man, I was sitting in the car today, picked up the kids, right? And I'm looking over the sun coming through my passenger window, and all I just see is just a bunch of hair underneath the chin of a smooth-faced looking young man. And I'm like, how are you smooth-faced with hair at the same time? What in the teenage wolf is going on here? Because I didn't grow facial hair until at least 27. Like, help me figure out what I was doing wrong. I'm joking. I was shaving every day, but without somebody teaching him how to regulate himself as he's becoming a man, he sees that this little hair means I'm a man now. Now he starts smelling himself too fast. I made it very clear to him. I said, listen, and he's taller than me, and he tries to shrink himself because he woke up one day this summer and he was 6 feet tall. I didn't like it. But I told him the moment we see eye to eye or you surpass me, with no questions asked, I'm going to put one right in your chest. Because I need you to remember who you are and who I am. I don't even want you to smell. Don't even smell it. Right? But I told him that because I need him. And here's why I tell him that, because I need him to understand. I love you, son. And I'm proud of who you're becoming as you're becoming bigger, stronger, all this other stuff. I will hurt you. And my daddy made that clear to me. You getting big, bro. I will hurt you. And I guess what? I believed him. Because I saw him do it to my older brothers. And my son believed. But what that did is now he sees that and he understands how to regulate himself as he's becoming a man. And he's not smelling himself too fast. He ain't out there trying to do too much. Right? Of course, we don't know everything they're out there doing. But that presence makes a difference. Physical, emotional, mental, we have to show up. Brothers, listen, I know time is coming up on us. I'm gonna give it's 2 of y'all, and we got two questions on this segment left. The angry father and the unhealed father, 1 and 2. I will let you choose individually. And if yes, sir, Uncle Junior, you want 1 or 2. we got the angry father 1 and the unhealed father 2. Oh, you chose 2. Yeah, that's right. So let me. I'm gonna pass 1 over to you. All right. So for Unc, this one's gonna be the angry father. All right. So the angry father says creates fear, perfectionism, and shame. Right. We get men that become either aggressive or overly apologetic from the angry father. So my question there is, how does the angry father wound show up in one's journey as a father himself?
So I wanted number 2 as well. But I'm glad I got number 1 because I get to be a little challenged a little bit more. Yeah, only reason I said that because like the number 2, that's what I had. You know, my father learned later on that that he wasn't healed from some stuff, and that's what caused the drug stuff. So, but this one allows me to think outside a little bit. So now I like this one. The angry father. I didn't have the angry father, but I did see the angry father a couple of times in my house. I've also known a few people who were raised by the angry father, and I've seen some of the outcomes. And like we mentioned earlier, one of those outcomes of the angry father is that the child grows up and the son grows up to be just as angry as himself. You know, that's what he saw. He saw dad anger handling, you know, a lot of his conflicts and issues that he had. He saw dad handling them with anger. So by proximity and environment, it's more likely that he may grow up and, you know, carry on some of these same traits and some of these same behaviors, you know. And then on the other hand, I think sometimes the father can be so aggressive and so angry that the child goes into some sort of um like a cave inside of itself, like an inner goes inward to whereas they don't want to have anything. They become super soft and super timid because they're scared that everything that they're say that their dad is going to get angry at him. And then there's the part to whereas the constant trying to please him because he's angry, and maybe he's angry at me because he's not happy with me, you know. And growing up as a child as, you know, fathers, I think one of the thing about being a son is that, especially if your father's in your life, you always wanted the approval of your father. You know what I'm saying? If he was around, you know, and I saw that with with some of my sons, one in particular, every time that he would go on the field, every time he would run or do a play, I would see him, he would look up in the stands. And I'm just like, man, focus on the game. But then after a while, I was like, well, maybe he's looking for some sort of confirmation from me. So I don't know if we ever really had a conversation about it. But that's another whole thing. I'm looking at the time. I gotta stay on topic. But I think with the father thing, I think some of the ways that it wounds show up in the journey as a father. And so I think one the long term is that he may be um, overly passive or can be turned into a passive father as he grows up because maybe he was more passive. It's like, hey, you know what? My dad was super angry with me. I'm not going to be like that. So he switched his parenting to the total opposite side. Or he may continue that trend. So I think, you know, it's kind of mentioned. I think sometimes kids and sometimes young men, when they have that, those are usually one of the two situations that's going to happen, especially if they don't get any help for it or something like that. But that's kind of what I think. In general, that's what happens in most cases is those two things. But I do believe that there are some other things as well.
Ooh, man. I like that you hit the different angles of this one, and I do agree with you. We definitely got to be. I think that's where you get a lot of those shy, scared to be outspoken people. Sometimes, right? Not always, but sometimes it can be a sign of that angry parenting. Uh, because for those children, they're always on the edge when they're performing, and things become performative for them for as adults. All right. So, but I gave a great answer, so I'm not gonna keep beating that horse. Coach, the unhealed father, a father who never dealt with his own wounds, um, and he creates men who inherit patterns that they never chose. So my question in this segment is: the man that we've described when I say in the last segment, in this segment, is your father. In the for this question, how do you see him in your coming of age years?
You said this was a hypothetical question, right? You sure? I'm just saying.
And if it's not, it's not. You know what I mean?
Hey. So I'm gonna just put it like this. The reason why I chose the unhealed father is because the unhealed father looks like every other type of father we talked about. He looks like the passive father. He looks like the angry father. He looks like the father that's projecting his unhealed insecurities onto the family. Angry outbursts, things of that nature, feeling personally attacked when at the end of the day we're just trying to resolve a conflict that is present. You think you believe as the father, you believe they're blaming you for the thing, but the only thing they're doing is bringing it to your attention, flying off the handle for any apparent reason. Um, People pleasing can also be another thing that person get into because at the end of the day they have some unresolved trauma that exists and they don't want to relive that. So I don't want to make my family mad. Here's the most dangerous one of all, though. The most dangerous one of all is when you compromise principles for people. Let me say it again. Compromise principles for people. I want to say that a third time because at the end of the day, as a parent, you are a principle bearer. You are the one who understand the principles. You're the one who teach the principles. You're the one who enforce the principles. Why? Because you don't want them to end up at the principal's office. I ain't talking about school, y'all. Let me say it again. I'm not talking about school. The reason why you teach principles in your home because you don't want them to be punished by the Most High. That's what you do as a parent. The unhealed parent compromise principles for the sake of their happiness, therefore turning them over to the Most High at a later point in time. That's a very dangerous thing. The unhealed parent, the unhealed father can be in that essence, that individual that looks at outside accomplishments as a facet of their identity because they never got to the point of having an honest identity as a man, as a husband, and as a father. So my job made me a made man. My accomplishments made me a made. The fact that I run a business, you run a business that's different than being a husband and a family. Never conflate the two. But that's what unhealed fathers do. They conflate the two. They conflate their outside accomplishments with their inside failures. They conflate their outside accomplishments with their inside failures. And then they use the outside accomplishments as the excuse when the wife says, hey, we need you here more. Your son needs to spend more time with you. Well, I got this going on. I got that going on. I got this going on. I got that going on. No, bro, you got some identity crisis going on within you. And the issue is that identity that you failed to create when you were young is a sore spot. And you don't want to face that sore spot. So you mask it by working all the time. You mask it by hanging out all the time. You mask it by consuming large amounts of alcohol till you black out. This is serious business, man. The unhealed father has several faces, and there lies the problem. The family don't know who they're gonna get when he comes home.
Did you just throw your own sound effect out there?
What sound effect?
I thought I heard something sound. Was that in my computer?
I think you heard. Yes, you created the sound effect, but it was like mic drop. You did that. I heard it.
I swear I heard something. It must have been something must be playing in my background because I was like, "D, is that a sound effect?"
Wasn't me, I promise.
Let me stop. Nah, listen, man, I can't come back after neither one of these brothers on these questions. Y'all, I love y'all responses. I hope y'all are listening and taking notes and in the chat. And thank you in the chat. I didn't forget about y'all. You know, time started creeping up on me. So, but listen, this is our bitter sweet of the bittersweets. Because this was a good conversation, and I almost don't want to let it go, but we have to move forward. So here's the thing, brothers. So in your final thought, can you do me a favor? I will speak to the men that are suffering in the areas of identity, relationship, leadership, discipline, and in their spiritual life. As a result of this conversation, you can choose as many or any of these areas that you want to choose, and then give us a how to walk back to health from whatever the wounds that are plaguing us or holding us up as we journey through life. Now that y'all heard me put that statement out there, y'all know that it's time for our bittersweet moment, our final thoughts. So
I think what I'm gonna do is I think at the end of the day, all of these can kind of be looped in together. And I think Coach would agree with me in saying that this probably would start in the how to walking it back with mindset. But if he want to tackle that or something, that's how I will let him. But definitely mindset definitely plays a part of this. But what I would say, my final thought is this. I'm gonna stick with I like the discipline and the identity piece. You know, if I'm speaking to men who are suffering with identity and discipline, I think one of the first things you start with is just like with the 12-step program when you're trying to get clean is understanding or identifying that there is an issue in those areas of your life when it comes to your identity and your list and your discipline. And then if we're looking at walking something back from there is gaining information on all things identity and discipline, you know, going back to whatever principles that you have in your life that guides your life and starting with there. If that is the Quran, start there. If that is the Bible, start there. If that is YouTube videos, then start there. But whatever it is that you have in your life, as the founding principles and how you live your life when it comes to identity and discipline, again, I would say start there. What does your culture, what does your core beliefs say when it comes to identity and discipline? And then again, gain and gather all of the information and knowledge on those subjects. Reach out to people, talk to people who are in those spaces. Try to put yourself in spaces where there are people who are disciplined. So I think that's kind of where I want to start at. Again, I think you first want to start with identifying and to yourself that there may be some areas in your life that may need some support or may need some growth when it comes to identity and discipline. And then again, after that, start gathering all of the information and knowledge after that. And then after that, between that, you will come up with a plan or start some sort of plan to get better when it comes to understanding more about your identity, who you are, and then the discipline that comes along with that as you grow and as you become into a better version of yourself as a man. That's my final thought.
Man, this is so first and foremost, this is a great conversation. I want to start off by looking at all of these different aspects, all 5 of them, because you have there before you, you have identity, you have relationships, you have leadership, discipline, and spiritual life. And I think to some point you're going to have to recognize that your identity is discovered through your spiritual life, which is supposed to be taught. And I'm using spiritual life loosely. Don't Y'all know what I'm talking about. And it's supposed to be taught within the family dynamics. Therefore, as a child, that's where you got your identity from. You got your identity. It was taught to you by your father, ideally. But if that didn't happen, then you look back over your life and you do some honest self-reflection and introspection. You may discover that you may be lacking in the areas of discipline. You may be lacking in the areas of relationship. You may be lacking in the areas of leadership. Why? Because the proper identity wasn't formed. So what am I saying? Identity formation is the beginning of all of those things because those things happen from the source of your being. So now, what's the how to? I didn't get that. So what do I need to do to now turn back the hands of time? I will start back. I would say environment matters. That's number one. Going back to what Punk just said, environment matters. You need to find yourself in an environment that talks about identity formations through understanding what the word the Most High actually says. I'm always reminded of Moses, going back to what Gaddy mentioned earlier, right? Who am I that I may go unto Pharaoh? In that one sentence, Moses identified a couple of things. He identified that, look, I may not necessarily have a properly formatted identity. That is a conclusion that we can draw from that statement. Who am I? Right? Or we can conclude, hey, tell me more about you. I think both of those are available. And I think within the scope of both of those questions, you can actually find an answer that is right for you. Who am I and who I am, right? Who is I am. So now we look at that, but then going through that, I may go unto. You're sending me to a man that I am already submitted to. So who am I to go to this man? And I know this man to be an individual who does some atrocious things to people. And I have a level of fear of doing that, but you want me to go do it. Okay, we need to have a conversation, figure this out. So get in an environment that talks about identity formation, that talks about spirituality, things of that nature. That environment should also talk and preach and teach discipline behavior according to a certain amount of instructions that exists coming from a source document. Not what Big Mama said, not what Papa said, and not what Uncle Tyrone is talking about either. Right? Those are not source document. That is not doctrine. And then the last part of it, it should lean into relationship by virtue of personal responsibility and accountability, both being the thing. Because if you don't have the ability to own your own mess, then you will never get to the point to where your own mess can actually be fixed. And that's just literally just getting down to the crux of it. But I do not want to leave without saying this one last thing. And I said it earlier, and I meant it from the bottom of my heart. If you have an absentee father, in fact, let's just say your father was not there growing up and they're still alive to this day, and you're a full-grown adult male, you need to go sit down with that man and be honest and transparent. Regulate yourself emotionally. Don't go yelling and cursing and all that other great stuff, right? Get to the point of developing yourself so that disciplined emotional regulation, psychological regulation happens. Sit down, be honest, tell that man what his absence meant in your life at that point in time, and then sit back and just be open to whatever it is. If they own it, great. If they don't own it, great. You tried. But here's the thing that you're going to find. If they don't own it in that moment, just give time, because I really do believe that there'll be a point in time when they actually come back because they had the opportunity to process everything that you said. But relationships require taking the necessary risk for them to grow.
When I tell you, I don't think I've had a better conversation in a while. Man, I really enjoyed this conversation. I know for me, and even being on the panel, I'm gonna go back and I wanna watch the replay because you brothers left a lot of gems out there. Especially, listen, if you're listening in and you're not a part of this community, you're dealing with two brothers who deal with adult and pre-adult people, right? They and I mean on the level as counselors and coaches. So you're getting gems from professionals. whether we know that or not tonight, we're getting gems from professionals, and so it would be important for my military folks out there. It would behoove you to to go back and watch the replay and take some notes, take some of these gems. I don't care if you're a father, a son, a daughter, a mother, a husband, a wife. There's a gem in there that you can take and you can take with you on your walk. So I do appreciate you brothers for pouring yourself out tonight in this topic, because it was felt early on if you was reading the chat. So I appreciate that. Listen, if you're here and you're not a part of the community, go ahead and join the Mindset Academy by hitting the QR code of the hand. Yeah, hey, at least on my screen is that it is.
Feels so awkward, man, because it's over this side to me.
Go ahead and scan the QR code, and if you haven't, go ahead and register for the free webinar on the 8th. Correct?
It's on the 8th.
The 8th. Yeah. Listen, when you are tuning into our shows or our lives, in the chat, these ladies and our moderators are putting out some very good information. So all the information that we need for all of our upcoming events are being put out there. But just in case we're missing anything, I'm gonna leave the door open for some house cleaning. Housekeeping. I'm sorry.
I really only have one thing tomorrow morning: community meeting at 10:30 a.m. So yeah, email was sent out. So if you got it, great. Look forward to seeing everybody there.
Amen. So listen, enjoy the rest of your evening. If you're going to watch the premiere of my bad. My mind just went to Marvel. I'm sorry, Marvel got a lot.
Spider-Man?
Yeah, Spider-Man releases tonight. So if you're going to see the release, have fun, be safe. If not, enjoy your Friday, and we'll see y'all tomorrow morning.
Drums in my chest, boom, boom, boom. Mercy on me, brand new chains fall off, no caps in 2 weeks.